Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah, all my settings say headphones. Okay.
Huh? Like that, and then hit
External headphones. Okay. Can you talk, Matthew?
Hey, Katie, I'm so glad you're here.
Yay.
Can you hear me through your headphones?
Yes. Okay. Cool. So the setting that says headphones shouldn't say headphones. Okay. Loving this. Bye.
I hope we picked that up just now, so we'll have that on the show. Everybody needs a little bit of help sometimes.
I know, but what's just infuriating is when I'm like, I just did this, all the settings are the same, and it reset itself and turned off. And then when it turned back on, it decided to do different settings. Anyways.
So who was that? Who's offering support and help?
My husband. So
do you think I could get his number?
Yeah. He's the best. Sorry, I'm like a tomato. I did a run and my body is not recovered from it.
Katie K, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Did you know that Matthew Gray and Katie K are kind of rhyming words?
Look at us rhyming.
Do you believe in synchronicity?
I do.
Do you? Well, isn't that interesting? Because the other day I was listening to your podcast that you do with your husband. You spoke a lot about that, and I learned a lot of things about you guys. One is that you have a very healthy contempt for Starbucks. Would you like to address that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's mostly the Starbucks inside grocery stores that I have a contempt for. Because when I'm on the road touring for comedy and I go to a Starbucks, like it's a safe haven because I know exactly what I can get there no matter what state of the country I'm in. The Starbucks inside of Ralph's specifically is like, it's just like a child in a Halloween costume pretending to be a Starbucks employee. They're just doing whatever they want and like gaslighting you into thinking that your order is correct.
Right. And charging you $12 too much.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit of a nightmare, but I can just not go to those. Like I know the answer is simple, but it does not stop me from being upset.
I'm hoping that you're not going to Starbucks when you're at home in town and just doing it when you're on the road. But I have a feeling I'm wrong about that.
No, I actually don't go near home. I just make coffee at home usually. It's just when I'm out like before a show. So I was, I guess not on the road, but I was in Orange County, so far from home. And I was so tired from the day. And so that's what sparked the cold brew debacle of 2025.
You told a funny story about wanting just like a plain coffee, no sweeteners, no syrups, no cream, and they couldn't get it right.
Right. I truly, if I had a difficult order, it would make sense. If I wanted like half calf with cold foam, strawberry, 2 pumps of cinnamon, whatever, sure, then I'm being extra. I'm making them bend over backwards. I just wanted purely cold brew poured over ice. Nothing.
No can do.
Yeah. And that was breaking someone. It's like, okay.
When you're at Starbucks or any other place for that matter, nowadays there's this whole awkward desire to have you tip as the customer. They kind of put it in your face now with the little tablets at the point of purchase. Is that something that makes you a little bit crazy also?
Yes. It's twofold because I was a server for 8 years. So tipping is super important to me, but I do think it's getting a little wild with the percentages just for, again, it would be different if my order was insane, but my order takes 0.07 seconds to like pour into a cup. Or like when you go to a bar and someone just opens a beer for you, it's like, I guess you're paying to be there. You're paying for them to be on the clock. But the like, when it says 20, 25 or 27 or 30%, it's like, oh, so usually I'll tip $1 or something. But it does hurt my heart a little bit.
You know, $1 for someone to pour a cup of liquid. Maybe we went into the wrong business.
I know. You know? It's crazy. I'm like, that's why I'll just get coffee out less and have it more at home. Like I have a big jug of cold brew downstairs and I just pour it into a cup.
The cold brew thing, explain this to me, even though I'm a lifelong chef and a coffee freak who roasts his own beans. Tell me exactly what a cold brew is and how it becomes cold brew.
I mean, great question. I'm not very good at it. I just get the like concentrate bags and you essentially just put it in what looks like an iced tea jug or whatever. And it steeps overnight in water. So it's very similar to just like making iced tea in the fridge, where you put like a bag of the grounds in the middle of a pitcher and then it steeps into the water. So then it's like highly caffeinated in the morning.
Okay, got it. It just sounds so confusing. Like in my day, they used to have something called sun tea, which was just basically putting water in tea bags out in the sun.
Yeah.
I don't understand what that was all about because it took you 10 hours to get your tea.
Totally.
So KDK, what does the K stand for? And is that why you go by K and not your full last name?
Yeah, my maiden name is Kusiel. It has a bunch of extra letters so people would pronounce it incorrectly. Kusiciel. So I would get Kusisiel or Kuzikiel, or people would just panic. And I was like, it's really not worth panicking over. But then when I got married, I'm not a big fan of my dad. We haven't talked in 12 years. So let's
get him on the horn.
I know. Let's just add him to the call, group call.
No problem.
Let's solve this today. But I was down to get rid of my last name because of that. I was like not needing to hold on to that sacred carry on what lineage of this man I don't speak to. So I was down to change my last name, but my new last name legally is Wolschlager.
Wow.
So it did get worse. And then I had already been going by KDK when I started comedy as a stage name. So I just looked at my husband and was like, I will keep this legally, but I'm not using it professionally, right? And he was like, oh yeah, because he doesn't even use it professionally. He uses his middle name.
Okay. In your comedy career thus far, have you learned all the Polish jokes and maybe created some of your own?
My gosh, I think that me just like existing is a Polish joke. I think I'm unfortunately a pretty like gawky, like lanky, awkward human. So I think just that speaks for itself. I don't know that I've specifically written any Polish jokes, but I, as a human, am a Polish joke.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about what got you into comedy, because they always say that the most neurotic, crazy, kooky, abused types in the past are the ones who become comedians. Is that true? Do you have any sense of whether or not that's a for real explanation?
Oh, yeah. Truly. Yeah, absolutely. That is the secret sauce that makes a comic, I think.
Being a little damaged helps.
Yeah. The people that struggle the most with mental health end up on stage with a microphone somehow. Yeah, deeply troubled people become comics. So I do think I've always been a little bit like kooky and quirky and never really fit in. I like grew up mostly in Arkansas, and that was not the place for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always kind of stuck out, and now I just do that on stage.
Where do you guys call home now?
I'm in LA. Well, everyone has something to say about that. I'm in Santa Clarita, which is technically Los Angeles County, but right, people like to be, yeah, exactly. So near LA.
That's the home of the porn industry. Do you have anything to do with this?
No, but I do have an OnlyFans. I don't post anything really spicy on it, but I did a comedy set for, they film comedy sets, LMAOF. And then I created an OnlyFans account, and I do have a joke about feet pics, and I do post feet pictures for $5, and people have been buying them.
Wow.
So not to brag.
What is it about your feet that gets people all hot and bothered?
I don't know. They are the most average feet you've ever seen. I don't think there's anything spectacular about it, but people like feet.
So do you dress them up as puppets, or do you like the full on frontal, or what?
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. I guess some sole, some toes, some sole. I wear different shoes, but there's really no artistry to it. That would be great if I dressed them up. That would probably excite someone. Yeah, I need to up my wardrobe budget.
I was going to ask you about being a female comedian, because that's the age old thing, but now a female comedian with an account to show your feet off. Mm-hmm. People are paying for access to your toes, your toe jam.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty wild, and I'm not mad at it because it also is getting more traction for people to then see my comedy. And it would be different. I mean, everyone has their own thing. Like some comics post more than that, or they post, other spicier items, but I'm just kind of having fun with it. And then people have been interacting with, like, when I post a stand-up clip, they still interact with that too. So
just yesterday, I was reading about some celebs who have accounts on OnlyFans and they're making a ton of money and they're getting a lot of access to the world who might not otherwise have seen them.
So some people use it kind of like a Patreon, but yeah, I've seen like Disney actors go full OnlyFans energy, and I'm like, okay, got it.
Wow. Well, if it's adding to the pot, why not, right?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think there is a problem with female comedians really being able to break out, especially pretty women being able to make a good career in comedy? Or is that something that's in the past?
I think it's heading towards the past, luckily. I think people are making a more concerted effort to have a more diverse lineup, or a more diverse calendar for like headliners on the weekends. Luckily, I see more clubs booking people of color and women of color and LGBTQ. Like I feel like it's not just straight white men ruling the roost anymore. Yes, it is still like probably the majority. But yeah, I think it's luckily we're in a wave of that being a priority. So I haven't really felt like in my comedy career, I've been cast aside. There's definitely parts of the country where I'll get booked at a show and then I'm doing my 45-minute set and I feel people in the audience like don't want to hear women speak. Like I can definitely tell there's parts of the country where they're not used to women like speaking for more than 2 minutes at a time and they like tune out. So hopefully that starts to change. But I do think now people are starting to amplify female voices more.
If you had to create a stock character, female character for a terrible sitcom, what ridiculous traits might you give her?
My goodness. I love that question. Well, the things that come to mind that I'm obsessed with are like the Kristen Wiig, the character where she has like the baby hands, or like, those, or the Debbie Downer, like the old school SNL characters I'm obsessed with, or the one-upper where she's just always one-upping everything everyone says. So I don't know, definitely something neurotic, maybe some sort of like phobia, or just like takes everything really personally, or makes everything about her. So no matter what the other character is saying, be like, somehow take it as like an attack. So I think that would be really fun to play with, like in every scenario of a scene on a sitcom.
Yeah, some people do take things very, very personally and they think it's always about them, right?
Yeah, and that's definitely really far from my actual personality for sure. I'm like such a sensitive person and I do take things really personally. So, but then it sparks, like, it helps me write jokes. So it's fine.
How does a sensitive person, even if somewhat damaged, get themselves up on stage in front of strangers, especially now in the post-COVID world?
Yeah, you got to have such a thick skin. And I've definitely had many a sad night where I just drive home silently, no music, nothing. And really am just like, wow, what am I doing? I also started in acting before stand-up. And I think just all of it, like with auditions and whatever, you just develop like calluses at some point. So yes, it still affects me, but you just keep going.
So you just keep on striving forward no matter what.
Yeah.
So even if the stuff is hitting you in the face and you're getting all this weird energy and being the person who believes in synchronicity, that's got to be difficult. So do you have a bad joke or just a really terrible joke that you secretly admire for its sheer audacity?
Ooh, I think some of my earlier jokes were just kind of like green, and more of like joking about how I look and being just like really obvious. Like I think I would be like, oh, because I'm 5'10", so I'm really tall. And when I was dating, I would date guys, like a ton of shorter guys would want to date, and I was open to it. But I was like, you're not doing yourself any favors, short guys, because when they come up, they're like, oh, I want to climb that tree. And I'm like, oh, I'm not open to being climbed. Thanks. Like, I would just make fun of my height in those like sad little like easy ways. So I guess those make me cringe now. But
was that an issue while you were growing up? You would never wear heels because you were a little bit self-conscious of your height?
Definitely. Yeah. I still barely wear heels. Like twice a year I wear heels now. But yeah, I was always pretty self-conscious. And I was taller. I was 5'10" when I was like 12 or 13. So it was definitely a growth spurt before any guys had a growth spurt. And definitely like my other girlfriends weren't that tall. So it was definitely like a giraffe situation. And I dated people shorter than me for a few years before I met my husband. And I was never, it's really if that person's secure and makes you feel like it's fine, or if they're insecure, then that doesn't go well.
Right. I mean, you could be 10 foot tall and feel like you're nothing and opposite, right?
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. Is there something that's off limits nowadays, Katie, in comedy that just like it's unapproachable, or is it always a matter of timing and like, is it too soon type stuff?
Yeah. I mean, there's people that love to bring up the current landscape and the news, and, you know, there's always going to be those people at open mics that do a joke about school shootings or rape or something horrific. And it's like, sure, you can say that, but for what? Like, is it worth it? I'm definitely not a shock value comic, and you can joke about politics, of course, and some people are only politics. I just completely stay away from it because I feel like no matter what you do, you're alienating half the audience. It's just not worth it to me. I feel like people go to shows to forget about how difficult the world is right now instead of think about it more. So to me, I feel like politics is off limits, but obviously not everyone feels like that.
How do you decide on the style that it would be observational or shock jock stuff or whatever? How do you define yourself growing up in the comedy game?
Yeah, I think I'm between observational and storytelling. So a lot of my material is just stories from my own life. And then some observational stuff. I think it's just, to me, I feel like people's styles are just an amplified version of who they are off stage. Mm-hmm. So if someone is like a really animated impressionist off stage, or a storyteller off stage, or all they do is watch the news and go on scroll on Twitter, then they're probably going to be political. Or if they're a pretty monotone human, then they're probably going to be pretty like a straight monotone style on stage. And I'm a pretty animated person while I'm talking, and that definitely shows on stage. So yeah, I think it's just like an amplified version of your actual personality.
I think I found you on Dry Bar Comedy, and at the first moment I saw you, it seemed like you did a little bit of the neurotic comedian. Was that part of your style? Is that part of your act now?
Yeah, I am. Again, yeah, just amplified neurotic off stage also. And yeah, Dry Bar was really fun. I enjoyed it. I was nervous because I work clean mostly, but then, you know, Provo, Utah is another level of clean. So I got a little bit nervous. And I had, at the time I had kind of like purple in my hair, and I have some tattoos on my arms, and I got there a day early. I'd never been to Provo before. And I was just walking to grab food, and I got some like look. I was like, oh no, they are not gonna like me tomorrow. Uh-oh.
Right.
Uh-oh. But then when I actually did the taping, it was like some of the best audiences of my life, and the people were super fun. So I was really nervous for essentially no reason, because the people in the theater were like incredible. So I was very lucky, and I felt happy that I did it after. But yeah,
they don't even serve alcohol in that club, do they?
No. So
that's so wild. It's like the yin and the yang of a comedy experience, right?
Right. Yeah, it was interesting.
So now you have to tell us about your tattoos, because you uncovered that subject.
Yeah, I have I don't know if you know Marcel the Shell from
I don't.
Okay, it's a Jenny Slate character. He's here. I highly recommend watching the movie. It's Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is the movie.
Okay.
And it's so precious. And I don't think everyone would cry that much. I think it just hit on like childhood trauma for me. But I feel like watching that movie, I went through 10 years of therapy, so it helped a lot. And then I tattooed him on my body. And then I have just like a hummingbird and like a face with flowers on it on my other arm, like flowers growing out of the brain, which I feel like is me.
That's a wonderful depiction, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you plan on any more in the future?
Yeah, I think I'm open to more. It's not on the schedule, but I definitely have ideas. Oh, and I have my grandma's handwriting on my ribs. I forgot about that one. Yeah.
That's very cool. How do you do that?
I just took in a letter she wrote me, and then they kind of were able to like get her handwriting onto like a paper and then put it. And yeah, it was good.
You know, Katie, the Hollywood experience for folks in it like yourself can be a bit troubling and a bit powerful. Is the same thing taking place for comedians? Is there like behind the scenes stuff in the comedy world that you have to do this for that person, you have to do that for this person to be able to get to the next level?
Yeah, you have to play the game, I guess. I probably don't do it as much as I should, the schmoozing and stuff. Yeah. And it is like tricky too, because a female comic, like I don't want to just hang out in a boys club all the time. And like I am married, so it's not really like I don't want to stay out late after shows hanging out with male comics for what, or like a male booker. Like, what am I doing?
Right.
So it is a little bit tough. And like, you know, you want to open for someone on the road, usually like a bigger name. You want to be their opener, but it is hard because if you're just on the road with another guy, like, is that weird? Is he married? Does his wife feel weird about that? Or, you know, there are those things to consider. And then sometimes another woman doesn't want to bring a woman as an opener because they don't want to have overlapping topics of jokes. So yeah, it is like such a balance of still networking, still putting yourself out there, still meeting the right people while not completely just spending all your time kissing someone's ass.
Right. Has that entered into your bit at all? Do you ever speak about that, about the juxtaposition between men and women being on the road, what's expected of you, what people want from you, that kind of thing?
I guess I haven't really written a bit about it because to me, sometimes I can't tell if audiences want to hear about like the inside baseball of it all. Mm-hmm. If that joke is more for the other comics and less for the audience, but I think it's always safe to explore like the male versus female perspective because everyone can relate to that. So in a sense, I feel like maybe it would still work.
So who do you bounce stuff off of after something happens to you? You go, I got to write about this. I want to present it in my act. So do you bounce it off your hubby, off of friends? I mean, how do you know what's going to work and what won't?
Yeah, I go to a little like writers group sometimes on Mondays, and we kind of use that as a space to workshop. Obviously open mics, but those are really hit and miss depending on who the peers that are there or not there. And then, yes, definitely my husband, he's a saint even sometimes I'll say stuff and he'll go, write that down. That was funny. Like I'll just be talking in life and then he'll say, wait, write that down. That's a good premise or whatever. So he helps me keep track of things that are, you know, that he thinks would work in front of an audience.
Do you keep a pad or a voice recorder right next to your bed all the time in case something pops into your head and you just want to kind of flesh that out?
Yeah, I have a notebook and then sometimes like I'll just make a phone note or something like that, depending on what's near me. But
when I was doing my research on you, I saw a really funny bit of you on television and someone flipped you or what? Could you tell our audience what I'm trying to describe?
It was during the pandemic. One of my friends works in casting for America's Got Talent. And I had auditioned for stand-up for a few times. And she was like, I got to be honest, your backstory is not good enough to be on for stand-up. Like we want a different kind of story. But I've had this idea for a sketch character. Would you be open to it? And at the time I hadn't done a show in 6 months because the world was closed. And I was like, sure, I'll do anything. I don't care. And she had the idea for a character that Jello wrestles alone in a pool of Jello. And then I went on season 16 as this character, and I had some snarky rapport with the judges because I was there for 4 days in a warehouse waiting to do this dumb character. Howie Mandel was like laughing at my responses, and he's like, "Are you a comic?" And I was like, yes, I am. And he goes, "Why don't you come back for stand-up?" And I was like, "Why don't I come back for stand-up? Someone write this down." So I emailed them the next season and said, "Hey, Howie told me to come back." And they said, "Oh yeah, we were just thinking of you. Actually, we do want you to come back for America's Got Talent Extreme as the character again." And I was like, "Great, sure." So I came back with a team of 3 girls, and we all trounced around in Jello again. And Nikki Bella was one of the judges on America's Got Talent Extreme. And sorry to ruin the magic of television, but we planned the flip, and she came up on stage and flipped me into the pool of Jello. Also, we practiced the flip twice on stunt mats, and stunt mats are not thick. They are thin. They are basically ground, and it hurt a lot. So the flip into the Jello was like a pillow compared to the stunt mats. And yeah, she's a very small human, and she flipped me over her head with no problem.
Well, that was great. That must have gotten a lot of attention for you.
Sure, yes, but it is silly because if people introduce me on stage, they're like, "You might have seen her on America's Got Talent." And I'm like, "In a leotard with a cape," but sure.
And you're still a little bit sore from that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was interesting. God bless the Amazon leotard I was wearing that cost $12 and didn't rip when she grabbed it.
Wow, you'd have got yourself a bargain there.
Yeah.
Katie, girls apparently, in my experience at least, have never really enjoyed fart jokes or the Three Stooges. Where do you stand on that?
I think I'm always in for a good like poop joke of, if things happen in life and you're about to shit your pants type of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have any fart jokes, but I have some poop jokes.
Oh, would you like to tell us one?
I have one involving cold brew. Essentially, I poured myself cold brew, got heart palpitations, but more than usual. Checked the jug again, and I had consumed cold brew concentrate. So it triggered 3 panic attacks. I spent 8 hours on the toilet, and it's not did I shit myself, it's how many times. But the good news is I'm feeling very skinny now.
It's funny because I was going to ask you about if there was anything that you were ashamed to admit being a comedian. You'd think not. And then you just went ahead and just said that.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can have shame as a comic. It's not an emotion that we should access much because you're supposed to just bear it all, really.
As a comic, going on what you just described, is that something that carries over into real life? Are you that callous to where things that you've done wouldn't embarrass you in a room full of your peers or your friends or your family? Or is it always different depending on your audience?
It's definitely different. When I'm in comedian mode and I'm on stage, I don't feel that. But when I'm just me, when I'm not in comic mode and I'm just in a room of people, I'm like so easily embarrassed. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a flip that switch that flips, whatever.
Right. What's something that you find funny, but that you would be ashamed to admit? Or is it back to that if you're in comedian mode, anything goes?
I think that I suppose when other people do like jokes about sex and like their partners and stuff, I find that funny. But I think I'm more on the conservative side of sharing all that because I guess it's more that I don't want to, I'm fine with embarrassing myself, but it's less of like, I don't want to embarrass my husband. He has never asked me not to share stuff, but I just feel like he didn't choose this.
Right. And then also, it's not necessarily true what's being shared on stage by a comic or storyteller or speaker or anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Most of my jokes are true, but yes, other people make stuff up.
It seems like male comics have always talked about sex and female comics have always talked about not wanting sex. Is that something that still plays?
It might be a more antiquated thing now, I suppose. I think a lot of women talk about sex too now. So
Yeah, some of them pretty down and dirty too, right? Who are some of your favorite female comedians out there?
Nikki Glazer, I love her. Whitney Cummings, Eliza Schlesinger. Those are probably my top three.
Have you met them and been able to chat with them a little bit?
A little, yeah. I've hosted some shows that they're on. They're all very sweet. So it's always nice when you meet someone that you admire in real life and then they're just as nice as you thought they would be. So that's always helpful.
If there was something about the comedy industry that you could change, what would it be?
What's interesting is there's no linear path. So if you get this credit and that credit, it still doesn't mean that you're selling out shows and that everyone's booking you. It's still like an uphill battle all the time. So I suppose if like I could snap my fingers and there was like more of an A plus B equals C energy, and it was kind of like other careers where you get a promotion at your job once you've been there for 2 years or 4 years or 5 years or whatever. Whereas this, you could be doing it for 8 years or 14 years, and then you could have the same credits as someone that's been doing it for 4 years, but just met the right person. You can be the person on late night in Comedy Central and then have the person next to you that's been doing it 15 years that's still struggling to like get those contacts. So I think it would just be if things were a little more straightforward and linear, that would be good.
You know, when people talk about sports and what's the most difficult aspect of sports, I always say hitting a baseball flying at 90 miles an hour. I think that comedy is probably the most difficult thing in performance. It seems like comedy would be more difficult than acting. I think anyone can act, maybe not well.
Yeah.
But to get up, make people laugh
Mm-hmm.
seems super difficult. Have you found that, or is that something you're struggling with, or is something you're really relishing?
I've always loved that. So yeah, I don't really struggle with it. It's also, I've noticed on days when I'm having a bad day, I have some of my best sets. So even on days when you would think it's harder, for some reason, you have like a better energy where your defenses are down.
Right. If your internal monologue had its own stand-up bit, what would be its signature story or observation or joke?
Oh my gosh. My inner monologue. My inner monologue is unfortunately really self-deprecating. So it would
That's
probably,
good, isn't it?
well, it
Makes the
keeps me
audience love
humble.
you that much
Yeah.
more. Okay. Yeah, right.
Keeps you humble. Yeah. So I think my signature thing would just be like roasting myself based on my toxic self-doubt and anxiety.
If you were going to explain a little bit about comedy to an alien, and I'm not talking about like people from Arkansas or Oklahoma, where would you start as far as explaining what it would be?
Ooh, I think what's cool is it's like kind of easy because I think any species, alien or otherwise, likes to laugh. So I would just kind of like draw probably a picture of a group of people and then one person like standing in front of them, making them laugh. And we don't even need to describe the microphone. That's okay.
Right, exactly. Tell us about your dogs, because I heard them barking when I was listening to your show the other day.
I'm so glad they've behaved today. They are adorable, but a nightmare, but I love them. I have a miniature pinscher mix and then a terrier corgi Jack Russell mix. They're both rescues, so it's all really a guess. They're both like, one is 8 pounds and one is 10 pounds, but they have the personality of a 100-pound dog. Like
Okay, so they're 10 feet tall.
Yeah, they have a lot to say. So
what are their names?
Daisy and Maddie.
Maddie, like Matthew?
Yeah, his name when we got him at the shelter was Madrid. So we just kind of shortened it. But then I was thinking like 13 going on 30, Mark Ruffalo's character. But then everyone thinks he's a girl when I say Maddie, which I get. So that's my bad. But yeah.
That's wild. Do you cook for them?
We give them really good, like raw food, small batch food. It's frozen, but I don't cook it, but they do eat better than me.
Yeah. I think that's the way it is. I cook for my kitties every day.
Oh, cute. I do have 2 cats. They just don't disrupt during the podcast.
They steer clear.
Yeah. So 2 cats, 2 dogs. What's your cat's names?
Smudgy. And the other one is Verna Teriyaki.
Love those names. Oh, I love the character. That's so funny. Oh, yeah. I named Daisy like so long ago, and I'm like, I think that's like in the top 10 most popular dog names, and there's like 7,000 Daisies on the planet that are dogs.
Right.
Like, I love that no other cat has those names. That's so cool.
Oh yeah. That was it's just so funny how the whole naming convention is a thing for people. Some people want the Daisies and the Rovers, and we wanted no part of that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's awesome.
So now that we talked a little bit about feeding the animals, what have you eaten today?
A whole lot of nothing. I got up and started going, and I went to the gym, went on a run, and I don't like to run on a full stomach, but I had like a protein shake. That's so annoying. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Mediterranean food later today is one of my favorites.
Yum. Is that something you're cooking or going out for?
I was invited to dinner, so I am excited for this restaurant. Yeah.
Do you cook much?
No, I mean, I try, like we eat at home, but it's like kind of like pre-made items. My signature dish is a salmon bowl, and I am good at that. That's like my one thing that I'm really good at.
So what is that, sauteed, or how does it happen?
I cube up the salmon and put it in the air fryer with some marinade.
Okay.
And then I do edamame, peppers, and cucumbers in like a different sauce and rice, and then get the salmon out, and it's delightful.
It sounds very Californian style. How long have you been there, and has that changed the style of foods that you enjoy eating and cooking?
Yeah, I've been out here for 12 years, and there's just so much more access to like, I guess like healthier foods out here, because I hadn't even seen an avocado the entire time I lived in Arkansas. And when I did, it was brown. I didn't ever see a green avocado. So I think it's just helped with good access to like things like that.
Are you guys okay after the fire? What's the fallout been like?
Yeah, we're okay. We're still like volunteering about once a week, and just helping where we can. But like half the city is rebuilding essentially right now, and roads are closed and stuff. It did get a few miles from us, the fire, so we did evacuate twice, but luckily they stopped it before it got to our physical neighborhood. But yeah, it was definitely really scary, but we're lucky. We're luckier than a lot of people. So yeah.
Yeah, terrible stuff. I was there cooking for some of the first responders when it happened. I flew out.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I just wonder how people can get by if they can't get their insurance settled. And everyone is renting places before you. I mean, what are people doing? What's the reality on the ground now?
Yeah, it's crazy because the people's houses that are lost are still paying their mortgage for a house that doesn't exist while also paying rent, and landlords raised rent. So yeah, I know people that were paying $10,000 mortgage and they're still paying that. And they're also now paying $5,000 in rent every month. And luckily they still have their jobs and they can somehow piece things together to make it work. And they're talking to their insurance to like kind of catch a break, but people are just in insane situations right now.
Is there no justice? You think this would be the time that government or somebody would step in and say, these poor people, let's help them, let's suspend this, or let's, that kind of thing?
Yeah, totally.
But it's not happening, is it?
Right. Not yet. So fingers crossed for them.
A perfect topic to ask you this next question. Do you and your husband share a therapist?
We do.
You got to tell me about that. When I heard that, my mind exploded.
I know. And I think probably for some people it wouldn't work, but I kind of like it because I think then she has context for everything. And I almost don't have to spend so much time explaining. But he had her first, and I've been through like 4 therapists and not had the right fit. there were people that would just flake on me or be super late all the time. And I'm like, I'm paying you to listen to me. What? Someone just like, I think she had a medical issue, but she just never came back. So I've been through a few. So he had her first, and then he was like, I don't really care. Do you want to, like, I mean, she knows about you from me, and like, do you want to meet with her and see? Like, that's fine. And then I did, and she was fine with it, and I was fine with it. And then we do some couples therapy too. So it just worked out where neither of us are like disparaging each other and whatever. So it's just that she has like the context of our whole lives, and she's really good. So I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, it works out.
I had a therapist once fall asleep on me during the session.
Oh my God.
Even way more messed
That's
up now.
so triggering. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the person who needs to be awake.
That's so tragic.
Yeah.
Did you,
So
obviously, was that your last session ever with them?
Yeah. What's the most backhanded compliment you ever got from somebody who is really actually there to try to support you?
Definitely. Okay. Well, I don't know if it was to support me, but there was a guy at a bar that said I had a nice nose, but then he said, in a world full of nose jobs, I just really hope you never change it. And that was really backhanded because I was like, so you're saying my nose is fucked up? So you're saying my nose is weird and big? Yeah, I think he was trying to give me a compliment, but then he just went too far, and I was like, great.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks.
So is that something that you've ever paid attention to, or is it just like you totally accept yourself?
Yeah, no, I've always had an insecurity about my nose. So I have some jokes about it and stuff too, but that's the part of me that if I had just like unlimited money, I'd probably get a nose job. But yeah, I don't have too many other things I would change. I've like accepted myself. I think it got better once I got a nose ring. I'm like, ooh, I bedazzled it. I like it better now.
You see, your nose is ripe for comedic exploration.
Yes, exactly.
But wasn't there a famous actress who had a nose job and then it kind of ruined her career?
Yeah, I can't remember who it is, but you're so right. Where it's almost like her nose made her more unique. And then when she looked like everyone else, then she just like didn't fit the same types.
Right. The girl in Dirty Dancing. I forget her name.
Yeah.
But that's who that was. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. So you gotta keep it real and not change too much, right?
Exactly. Here's my cat. Look at Rusty. He's gray and very fluffy. And apparently likes to now be involved in this.
Do all your animals sleep on the bed with you guys?
The dogs do. The cats like to do their own thing. They like to be sleeping in their own space. I'm like, I respect that. Yeah. But the dogs need to be cuddled. They're very emotionally needy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so is mommy and daddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tell us about your social media usage and interactions. Do you find that it's helpful for you, for your life, or your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a double-edged sword because it would kind of be nice if we didn't need it, but it's also nice because you're getting more eyes on all your comedy and you're getting people out to shows and you're able to promote yourself in a different way now. So yeah, I think it's been helpful. It just sometimes can get overwhelming for sure.
Give us a little bit of comedic wisdom for anybody out here who's thinking about starting a career or getting into it a little bit. Can you sprinkle a little bit of that on us?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it is instant gratification for people to get on stage and for people to laugh at you, but it is not instant gratification to get where you want in the career. So I think it's about balancing that feeling of, yeah, it's going to be really hard for a long time to like make it to a higher level, to level up. So I think it's just like do it for the right reasons or you'll burn out quickly.
Yeah.
So just like enjoy the ride instead of being like result oriented.
Yeah, that's good. Do you find a lot of people who do come up to you and ask you for advice about the industry and that kind of thing as you're in kind of this growth spurt of your career?
Yeah, it's weird because comedy is very solitary, even though it doesn't seem like it. And it's very competitive, like everyone's out for themselves. So there's just a select few humans that I feel like actually we can have real conversations and share booking information with each other. But some people are like very like take, like, oh, send me all your contacts, blah, blah, blah. So, or people that I ask like, hey, do you mind sending me the email to that booker? And they're like withholding about it. And it's like, why?
Right.
So it is like a slippery slope, and people have, their own pride. So they feel like if they ask for advice, then they seem weak or something. So it doesn't happen as much as you would think. And it is hard to find, people to be vulnerable with or lean on in the industry, because everyone's kind of trying to show off their accomplishments rather than ask for help.
Yeah. People come from a place to where there's not enough cream to rise to the top, and that they feel that you're some sort of a threat to their success. And so
Right.
people who don't share and who don't help others, it's probably hurting the industry more than helping it.
Exactly.
If we wanted to catch you anytime soon, do you have a road tour happening? Do you have some appearances on television or elsewhere?
Yeah. So the LMAOF special will be out this month. They didn't give
What
me
does that stand for, those letters, Katie?
So it's usually laughing my ass off, but they combine it with OnlyFans. So it's LMAOF. So that's their,
okay.
yeah. But that special will be out within the month. They didn't give me the exact date, but I will post about it on my social media at KDK
Great.
Comedy. And then
Comedy.
next weekend, I'll be in Asheville, North Carolina, headlining. And then I have more dates coming up, and I usually always post the dates and then pin them to the top of my Instagram. So easy to find those soon as well.
When you travel around, are you able to have someone film your stand-up routine and then you be able to use it on your social?
Yeah. So again, you have to be like a Swiss Army human as a comic. You have to do it all now. So it's usually me filming myself and then editing my own clips and then all of it. So yeah, I usually set up either my phone or a camera on a tripod in the back before I go on stage and edit it later and hope for the best.
I contacted the Dry Bar people to ask for some permission to show some of your stuff here when I do the edit on the show, because I'd done that on another comedian, Brian Kiley, who used to write for Conan.
I love Brian. He's awesome.
Isn't he great?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had interviewed him, I guess it was last year. So I asked Dry Bar again to give me permission to use some of your footage.
Well, that's so nice. Yeah.
Well, Katie, it's been so much fun having you.
It was so refreshing because, I have a podcast, and it's kind of nice to just like, you're the one steering the ship here, and it's refreshing to just answer questions, and we had fun, and thank you for dealing with my technical crap at the beginning. I appreciate it.
Might leave some of that in just because everybody needs to know that Katie
Some
K
bloopers.
is more of a regular person.
Comics, they're just like us. They can't plug anything in correctly.
Exactly. And, comedy junkies just love that stuff.
Yeah, the blooper reel.
Well, thanks again, Katie.
Yeah,
What
I'm
is your
happy
website
to.
Again?
KDKcomedy.com or at KDKcomedy on all social media. And yeah, I'm happy to post about it. So let's definitely keep in touch. Look at that. I love it.
Take care, Katie. We'll talk soon.
You too. Thank you, Matthew.
You bet.
Bye.
Aloha.